Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's update on Hurricane Lee. So Lee has become a hurricane, and as of 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, Wednesday, September the 6th, Hurricane Lee has maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, a minimum central pressure of 991 millibars, and west-northwesterly movement at 14 miles per hour. Looking at the latest official National Hurricane Center cone for Hurricane Lee, Lee is expected to remain a hurricane through early Friday morning, become a major hurricane by Friday afternoon, and remain a major hurricane through at least Monday afternoon. Now, the very good news I have in this update is that the cone of Hurricane Lee has shifted about 100 miles to the north from this morning's update, and now areas like Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, U.S. Virgin and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola are now going to only feel minimal impacts from Hurricane Lee, as Lee is going to be too far to the north to really bring any serious impacts. So looking at the latest Zoom Earth satellite imagery and cone for Hurricane Lee continues to look even more impressive on the visible satellite, as an inner core of thunderstorms is developing around the center. We see the clouds fanning out in the northern and northwestern areas of Hurricane Lee, indicating a very good environment for strengthening for Hurricane Lee, and this is only going to continue as the days progress. So looking at the latest interactive cone from Zoom Earth, by Thursday 1 a.m. Central American Time, we're looking at an 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Thursday 1 p.m. Central Time, a 100 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. By Friday 1 a.m., 110 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Friday 1 p.m. Central Time, a 125 mile per hour Category 3 major hurricane moving to the west-northwest. By Saturday 1 a.m., 140 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane moving to the west-northwest. Saturday 1 p.m. Central Time, 150 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane moving to the west-northwest. And then by Sunday 1 p.m. Central Time, a 150 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane, now about 300 to 400 miles north of Anguilla. And then by Monday afternoon, 145 mile per hour Category 4 major hurricane, about 500 miles north of Puerto Rico. So very good news for my friends in areas like Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, St. Martin, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola, as the track has shifted well to the north from this morning. So I do believe that most of the impacts are going to miss the northern Lessar Antilles now. Looking at the latest in spaghetti model guidance for Hurricane Lee, in the next 72 to 96 to 120 hours, Hurricane Lee is expected to pass about 300 to 400 miles to the northeast of the northern Lesser Antilles, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and this is going to keep Lee at a safe distance from these islands, keeping the major impacts well away from the islands. And then as we go into the next 5 to 7 days, 120 to 168 hours, Lee is expected to stay well to the east of the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. So good news for my friends there as well. Now looking at the intensity model guidance for Hurricane Lee, Lee is expected to become a Category 3 major hurricane in the next 36 hours, Category 4 in the next 48 hours, and remain a Category 4 through at least the next 5 to 6 days, as majority of the models keep Hurricane Lee at least a Category 4 hurricane, even have some of the models taking Lee to a Category 5 hurricane. So very powerful hurricane. I'm going to be showing you the GFS ensemble model tracks now. So this is the GFS ensemble tracks. We see these tracks missing the northern Lesser Antilles, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, several hundred miles to the northeast now. But Bermuda, if you're in Bermuda, make sure you're watching Lee very closely, as you could be getting some serious impacts if some of these Eastern model solutions verified. Now looking at the European model ensemble tracks, very similar to the GFS ensembles, keeping Lee well to the north of the Caribbean, to the east of the Bahamas, Turks, and Caicos, except for a few outliers. However, once again, we see some of these models getting kind of close to Bermuda. So Bermuda, make sure you're watching Lee very closely over the next several days. Now, looking at the tropical storm force wind probabilities from the National Hurricane Center, I have some good news with this as well. About a 20 to 30% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds, down from this morning across areas like the northern British Virgin Islands, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, and then down towards St. Kitts and Nevis, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Guadeloupe. 10 to 20% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds from Hurricane Lee, as these have shifted with the track to the northeast. And looking at the, to close out the video, I'm going to read you the key messages for Hurricane Lee. Lee is forecast to become a major hurricane by early Saturday and could bring impacts to the northern Leeward Islands this weekend. While it is too soon to determine the location and magnitude of these possible impacts, interests in this area should monitor the progress of Lee and further updates to the forecast. Swells generated by Lee are expected to reach portions of the Lesser Antilles on Friday and the British and U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico this weekend. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. So, very good news for my friends in the northern Lesser Antilles, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, the Bahamas, and Turks and Caicos, as the track of Lee has now shifted about 100 miles to the northeast. However, if you're in Bermuda and down the line, New England and Atlantic Canada, make sure you're really closely monitoring Lee, as Lee could be bringing impacts to these areas in about 7 to 10 days. Thanks for watching this afternoon's update on Lee. Please stay safe and have a wonderful afternoon, my friends.